Douglas Ducote, an American patriot by the grace of God, do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America from enemies foreign and especially domestic.
Hello, American Patriots. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Douglas Ducote Show. As many of you know, we have been going down to the border. We've been putting out videos on the YouTube channel where you can see part of what we're seeing, but also over at douglasducote.com is the unedited versions of those videos. So if you would like to see more in depth and more detail, then that's where you need to go, because we can't show some of this stuff on YouTube. If we did, YouTube would surely shut me down. So look, this border, as you all know, has become an absolute disaster, not from just what we've been showing you, but for those of you that follow Tim Foley over in Arizona with Arizona Border Recon folks. You know, we need help. All right, we're coming up with solutions for that, like the terror block system, asking the president to activate more National Guard troops. We have a solution. We're one of the few that are out promoting anything that will actually work. Instead of just complaining about the problem, we are actually coming up with a solution on how to fix the problem. All right, and we do feel that that's the most important thing. You know, we can all sit around and complain, but if you don't have a solution, you're just one of the norm. And that's something that we're not here and we don't ever plan to be. A couple of things. Tonight's show, we're going to have on Colonel Allen West. Many of you have seen him on Fox News. He's been on Fox News, different shows for a long, long time. He's a great American patriot. We're going to talk about his future plans with the GOP. We're also going to have on Mahgdalen Rose. We've had her on before. She's a 20-year-old college student that is very in-depth about what's happening with today's youth. And we want to talk to her more about what we can do to get the youth actively engaged in the upcoming election in 2020, but also how can we get them to understand or at least listen to the Republican and conservative views instead of joining groups like Antifa and MoveOn.org and not actually doing their homework. I do need to say up front that for Mahgdalen's interview, I'm going to have my producer, Dustin Gold, will come on and he will actually do the interview in the second half. Reason being is that many of you have seen my Sir Peanut, my Chihuahua. You've seen videos we've done with him, and he has his own Facebook page. He's not doing good tonight. He's having some issues, and we're not sure what's happening. So I will probably need to be taking him as soon as the interview is over with the colonel to the local 24-hour ER thing we have here in the area for pets. So please pray for Sir Peanut that he does good. For those of you who have not followed Sir Peanut yet, go to his Facebook page. It's Sir Peanut, the PTSD Service Chihuahua. He is basically an ambassador for service dogs, all right, and to show what we need for many of our combat veterans needing service dogs and what they can do to help, the good they can do. So we show a lot of that on that page. So anyhow, Sir Peanut is, you know, he's, we'll see. You know, I hope that everything's going to be okay with him and whatever's happening, neurology will go away here real soon. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the things that we've done down there on the border. By the way, I just got back tonight. Went back down there again over the last few days and have some. I wasn't going to talk about this tonight, but I think I will, because I'm very, very excited about it. It appears, and this isn't in stone yet, but the landowner has agreed for us to sit down and meet with attorneys to write up this deal. But basically, he has many, many acres along the Rio Grande that is unprotected, and would love to have someone come down there and be a part of protecting his property as well as America, because there's so many of these people that are crossing the Rio Grande in this area and cutting right through his stuff. He would be the gentleman that you saw me interview about the drug cartel members that skinned his dog alive. So we're gonna do what we can to help him out, and possibly do something similar to what Tim is doing down there in Arizona, where we have veteran military, veteran law enforcement officers working together to help at least that portion of the Rio Grande and the border with Mexico. I will be heading back down there probably midweek to discuss that in detail and meet with the attorneys, because there's a lot goes into that. You can't just walk onto somebody's land and, do whatever you want to do. All right. It has to be completely planned out well in advance so that everybody's happy, as far as the landowner and the government and Border Patrol knows what you're doing, and it's being done safe. There's a lot of, let's say, militia groups that have organized throughout the past several years that have been down on the border doing what they call border ops and going down and arresting these people coming across and whatever. And that's not what we're talking about doing here. Okay. This will be very professional, and it will be exactly by the laws, and anyone that we encounter, and there will be plenty of people encountered, will be treated with respect and dignity, and turned over to border agents. All right, so that's all in the works. It all came together in just the past, really, I would say, 24 hours. So I'm very happy about it. I hope that we're able to make this happen and be a part of a solution while we're waiting for the other solution that we put forward, which is the terror block system, and getting that taken care of. While we were down there, we showed you how the college in Brownsville that butts up against the Rio Grande is completely exposed, where anyone can walk onto that campus after they wade across, or in some spots just get a running start and jump across the Rio Grande there. And it's a matter of time. It really is. If it hasn't already happened, and it could have, and we just don't know about it yet, but it's a matter of time before a student at that university is injured, killed, kidnapped, who knows what, by MS-13 gang members or drug mules. I can think of a million horror stories that I've heard about everything that's happening along that border, happening at that college, all because of a liberal president of the college, the university, that refuses to put a border up because that's inhumane. So when the government allowed them to put up their own border wall, they put up just a little fence that can't even keep a dog behind it or a pet. Anybody can climb it. A kid can climb it. So it's, a big shame. We showed you that we don't just have Hispanics coming across the border. We were able to show you that we have Muslims coming across the border. And we were able to verify some of the things they were leaving behind that proved that they were Muslim. And also the Border Patrol was very honest with us that the night before they had actually apprehended some people that were from Iran and from Pakistan. Now, why do we have people other than Mexican coming across our border from Central and South America and now other countries? We've heard from the Border Patrol they've apprehended people from Cuba and numerous places across the Middle East. Well, it's because they can't get here any other way. If they flew in, most of them are already on a terrorist watch list, so they're not going to make it. They're not going to be able to come into America from these countries on an airplane or a ship. But they're welcome with open arms. They don't have the same type security set up in Central and South America and Mexico that we do here in America. So they can fly into there and boom, get with the cartel and across they come. And they are being apprehended. The problem is how many manage to get across the border that we don't know about yet. All right, that's the scariest part. And my guess is going to be literally hundreds. So we can only hope that, that problem is fixed very, very quick. We're able to show this terror block system can be rapidly deployed and installed the entire rest of the border before the 2020 election, and for $1 billion. And we already have the $1 billion waiting, but the problem is we're paying it to people to build concrete walls that will take years to complete and way more than $1 billion. So we do have the proposal in Washington, D.C. We do have it on the president's desk. We're waiting to see what kind of response we get out of Washington. In the meantime, we will keep pushing that. And I ask you to push it too. Share it. Let people know about the terror block system. It should be something that's discussed at the dinner table. It's that important. We were able to show you how since 2009, over 700 people trying to cross into America, by the time they got here, they were out of water, out of food. There was nobody there in that area of Border Patrol to apprehend them, and they just died in America. And that was just one county, 700 people. You know how many counties are along the border with Mexico? Think about that. In all the different states. And they believe that 700 number that's only the bodies they recovered. Sadly, there's animals out there that just spread that stuff everywhere. And over time, it's gone. Big deal. We know that the Homeland Security has a $65 billion a year budget right now. Now, think about this. We've been showing you that the Border Patrol needs manpower and equipment. We've been showing you that the local sheriff's departments down there need manpower and equipment. The city police, the highway patrol, everyone that's part of this human element is lacking what they need. Where's this $65 billion going? When we have someone that's part of a landowner as well as part of a militia group that patrols and it helps locate these people and turn them over to Border Patrol, having to lend their night vision goggles to the Border Patrol agents because they just don't have them? Where's this $65 million going? 65 billion. Where's it going? I want to know. We're going to get on that soon. Uh, we know that the Democrat Party is never going to agree to let loose the money that's required. It's not going to happen. All right. We also know that there is a lot of Democrats that have been elected as sheriffs in different counties across the border, from Brownsville to San Diego, that have recently been arrested because they were working with the drug cartel. All right. Just recently, I believe there was like 6 of them, and an investigation found out that they were doing this. Sadly, we've even had members of the military and bases that are stationed down there that have decided to help transport people across that border. And I want to make it very clear that I, as well as probably every Republican, are all for people coming to America. After all, none of us were originally from here. Okay, we're a melting pot. But coming here legally and stopping not those that are trying to come here to escape a serious problem with their wife or their kids. No, the MS-13 gang members.
I found this on the web for
Excuse me. My phone activated itself, and I, by the way, had it on silent mode. I think I'm being watched. I don't even know what I was saying. The point is, we have a problem. Okay, it's a very serious problem. We've come forward with a solution for this problem. We're pushing that solution. And look, we'll listen to any solution. All right. Anyone that can come up with something that's better than the terror block system, let us know. Contact us. All right. Go to DouglasDucote.com. All our emails there. The whole Team Ducote's email addresses are there, and you'll be able to reach out to us. You know, share with us what you think. We will listen to any solution. But the bottom line is, right now, the best solution we can come up with is the terror block, along with the president activating some of these National Guard members, or like military police units, to come down to the border instead of going to Afghanistan or Iraq, for instance. And if they're on military active duty orders, then he can use them. He can't use the regular active duty military. Okay, so this can be done. It can be done before 2020. And it is my hope, from everything I've personally witnessed and shared with you, that we're going to do something, and do something really, really soon, to secure this border so more people do not die, either from lack of water coming across the border, or MS-13 gang members shooting and killing Americans, which we've also shared and shown you when we've interviewed some of the Angel families, and the drugs. So many of our youth are losing their life due to these narcotics coming across the border. As a matter of fact, a family that I've been very close to for many years just recently lost one of their children due to this horrible epidemic that's affecting our youth here in America. So we're going to take a short break, and we will be back with Colonel Allen West, great American patriot, and he will share some wonderful, exciting news of his future plans with the GOP. So hang on, and we'll be right back. Hello, American patriots. Douglas Ducote here. The Second Amendment, it's not for hunting. It's for protecting ourselves against our government. Well, the last thing you need to worry about is your weapon being rusted and not working. Folks, here's your product. FirearmGuard.com. Use promo code Doug for free shipping. This will protect your weapon from any rust and mildew issues.
We need to meet in places and start talking about restoring our liberty and fighting against a tyrannical government. It starts right here. It starts right now with each one of you that's gathered here today. We have a class warfare that's going on. You've got a producing class and you got an entitlement class. These people live in amongst us, and if we are not willing to take a stand right now and take this country back and put it back on the right track of the principles and values that it was established upon, you're complicit. It's your fault, it's your fault, it's your fault up there. It's okay to come out here and cheerlead, but you better get your butts out there and understand it's a fight, and you better be willing to fight for this country. We took an oath. And that oath said that we will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and to bear true faith and allegiance to the same. There's no statute of limitations on that oath. And tonight, every one of you needs to take that oath. As a great man said in December 1776, these are the times that try men's souls, when the summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will in this crisis shrink from his duties. If you're here to shrink away from the duties, there's a door. Get out. But if you're here to stand up, to get your musket, to fix your bayonet, and to charge into the ranks, you are my brother and sister in this fight. And charge this enemy for your freedom, for your liberty, for the future and the legacy of that young lady right there, because I will not go down and tell my children that I didn't have the courage, the conviction, the commitment, or the character to fight for this country. Don't go home and let your children down. You leave here today, charge! Thank you so much.
Welcome back, and what a great way to introduce Lieutenant Colonel Allen West. Hey, sir, thank you for coming on. You're a great American.
Where did you get that paid propaganda from? I mean, come on. Boy, I tell you what, do you know that was a decade ago? That was
it?
November, December 2009. That was back in Broward County, Fort Lauderdale.
You know what? I tell you, yeah, as from one military veteran Army here, non-commissioned officer, to a commissioned officer. I don't know why you are not in the White House. I've championed for you to become the president. People have talked about, what's he going to do? Is he going to run? Is he going to, 2024, where are we at?
I ran this morning. I did PT this morning.
Did you? I didn't. And it shows when I'm in my Speedo. And so you don't want to see that.
Army strong.
Army strong. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Tell us what's going on right now with you have some great news about Texas and the GOP.
Well, yes, and I hope that everyone in your listening audience had a great Thanksgiving and a Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah to your listening audience. And welcome into my home here in Garland, Texas, along the beautiful Eastern Hills. I've been living here in the North Texas area for 5 years now, and my last duty assignment was Fort Hood, Texas, so it's kind of like coming back. The folks down in South Florida, the Republicans redistricted me out and the Democrats made me their #1 target. So I landed here where all good Tennessee volunteers kind of end up. And that's I'm a graduate of that institution. And so what we decided back in August of this year is to run for the chairman of the Texas Republican Party because, Doug, the real ideological fight and battle for the United States of America, for the soul of this country, is not on Capitol Hill, it's in our states. And when you think about what just happened in Virginia, the state that gave us so many of our founding fathers, it gave us our first president, our first commanding general, the third president, the author of the Declaration of Independence, the fifth president, the author of the Constitution. And now look who controls Virginia. In just 245 short years, we've gone back to the tyranny of the new redcoats. And so when I look at what is happening here, even in the great state of Texas, where I live here in Dallas County, of course, when you go to Austin, Texas, the capital of Texas, more so resembles San Francisco than it does the capital of Texas. Houston, San Antonio, El Paso, the progressive socialist left is making inroads in the Lone Star State. So I think that the fight for America is right here in Texas, because if we don't hold Texas, we don't hold this nation.
I couldn't have said any better. You know, look, this is no longer, when we say blue state, we're not talking about the JFK party. This has become something complete. Socialism. I guess that's the best way of putting it now. Especially all those that are wanting, to be the next Democrat electee to go up against President Trump. They want to turn this country into a socialist country. And it's scary.
It's incredible, because when I gave that speech 10 years ago, you could not say that the Democrat Party was a socialist party, that they had leanings toward socialist ideology. I was demonized and castigated for even implying that, when it was Vladimir Lenin who said the goal of socialism is communism. But now they openly declare that. They talk about wealth redistribution. They talk about nationalizing economic production. They talk about, expanding the welfare nanny state. How can you have people that are upset with the strongest economy that our country has seen? And I don't know, definitely in my lifetime, and I'm 58, but they don't want that. Some folks here in Texas asked me when I was down in Rosenberg, it's a suburb of Houston, what's the difference between the Republican Party and the Democrat Party? And I said, it's very simple. Republicans make victors. Democrats make victims. And I think that should be the theme that we take going forward into 2020, is that the progressive socialist left cannot exist unless they have victims. And that's what they continue to try to do all across the United States of America. But we're going to stop it here in Texas, Doug.
Do you feel confident that we can stop Texas from becoming a blue state?
I do. And I feel very encouraged. Just last night, I was down speaking at the Austin Club to the Austin Republican women. And, the wait staff can hear, me when I'm speaking and everything. And after the event, it was incredible. A young Black male member of the wait staff came up to me and he asked me, he said, do you have any more of your books? And I said, I don't. I sold out. But today I got another copy of that book, and I FedExed it, immediately back down to him. The message is getting to people, because I don't think that anyone, Black, white, Hispanic, Asian, whatever, they wake up every day, Doug, and they want to be a victim. They want to be able to choose their own path and destiny. They want to be able to pursue their own happiness. But if they don't hear our message, which we have failed to do in the urban population centers, then they will listen to the message of being a victim and not being a victor. And we've got to take our message, especially back to those major population centers.
I agree 100%. We've been going down to the border a lot here recently, doing documentaries, which we have out right now here on YouTube, as well as on our at our .com. And I don't know if you've had the opportunity yet to look at this terror block system that we've been promoting, but basically it's a rapid deployment wall that can finish the border by 2020 for $1 billion. It's not a fix-all. You can probably still dig under it just like you can the concrete wall going up, but it has a technology built into it to where you can't climb it, and if you touch it, they automatically know where that location is, so they can send someone to look at it and see, is it a bad person or somebody that's about to die that needs help. Is that something you're willing to look into? And when it comes to this wall, we're all about solutions. And how do we stop the bad element from coming into our country without this, and at least in the future, it would show to everyone south of us that you're going to come in the right way, and we welcome you to come in the right way, but it would be able to stop the bad element. And the other part of this solution that we've come up with, as you know, the president can't activate active duty troops to go to the border, but right, he does that with the National Guard often for states that will allow it. But we're looking at, more going down there, bringing some onto active duty orders that are MPs that, for instance, like he would do if he was going to send them to Iraq or Afghanistan, to be like supplementing these border agents that are shorthanded, and and even the county sheriffs. Is that something that that you would be willing to, at least look into and help support in the future if we can pull it all together and show that it will work?
No, absolutely right. I mean, I have been down to the border. I've been down in the McAllen sector. I've been down in the Brownsville sector as well. And you're right. We have a real issue going on. And when you think about the control that the Mexican drug cartels have on the other side of our border, they're extending that control and their influence on our side of the border as well. And we just saw the family that was slaughtered down in Mexico. When you have a person like El Chapo's son that gets captured, the next thing you know, a battalion-sized element shows up to free him. We've got issues down there, and the president of Mexico does not seem to want to take the right type of actions. It seems that he's been reading Oprah Winfrey Book Club books for too long, and he thinks he can just give people a hug and a kiss and they're going to be okay. Yeah. So yes, I do believe that we need to have those measures, such as some type of obstacle, and we can have that obstacle be, like you just described, a very smart obstacle that, any type of touch or anything coming within a certain distance is going to alert people and notify people. You can have seismic devices that are out there can tell you if people are tunneling. But when you look down on our border and you see that we don't have a real heavy presence of individuals, we got to figure out how do we create those measures by which we can channel people into areas where we can have more on the boots on the ground surveillance. And we've got to be able to augment those agencies that are down there, like the Border Patrol. I've seen the TSA even operating down there in some of these facilities because we're stretching our Border Patrol so very thin. But you have a lot of the Texas law enforcement that is down there, our boat units that are down there. You even have some Coast Guard elements that are patrolling along the Rio Grande Valley. So I think it is very important we do that, because this is a soft invasion that we have that is becoming a very dangerous invasion. And I think the president does need to declare that the Mexican drug cartels are terrorist organizations, because you are seeing more deaths happen and more violence happen there than you're seeing in Iraq, Afghanistan, or Syria right now.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. When we did our last, we went out on the Rio Grande in the Brownsville area at night with our film crew, and I actually, I did 4 combat tours, and I felt more in danger on that border at night than I did when I was over in Iraq and other locations down in Panama and stuff like that. I mean, I felt like this is, a scary situation down here. And, we were, sadly, we're confronted with all the death that's happening, and the 700 plus just for one county since 2009, senseless. We found while we were down there, sir, the college in Brownsville right there that butts up against the Rio Grande. Yeah. There was a university president that was liberal and was against having any kind of wall put up when Bush was President Bush had the slats coming across. And they worked out a solution with her that she would put up her own type of border wall. And she put up a fence that you would have like in your backyard to keep your animals in, or your kids, and we saw this, and then a wide open section where anyone can walk right onto that campus. So we're hoping that by showing that, Governor Abbott will take heed to this and realize that something's got to be done to protect these kids in that college. Even the Border Patrol agreed with us when we were down there and we interviewed them, like, this is insane and they actually have recently coming right through that college area, Iranians, Pakistanians, MS-13 gang members. When is a kid going to be kidnapped or killed? And so that was a big concern that we've kind of focused at and looking at. I hope that, I haven't had the opportunity to speak with the governor myself. I'm sure you've talked to him before, but, that college needs to be protected. Those kids need to be protected. And we hope that in the future, that's something that can be done, as well as all the other things that need to happen as far as augmenting our forces down there. I mean, I'm sure the Border Patrol is, 50% of their time now is spent, babysitting and saving lives, not physically stopping and apprehending, which is why we got all these militia groups down there helping. So we have it's while we're focusing on that, we have the Democrats and Adam Schiff doing this whole impeachment thing that I haven't had a chance to talk about that.
Before we get off the border issue, I think one of the important things we need to understand is that Texas is the #1 state in the United States of America for human and sex trafficking. As a matter of fact, a young 15-year-old girl in Houston, Texas, just took her life. She was found and recovered from the sex traffickers, but the damage that they had done to her, psychologically was just too tough. And so that's another one of the offshoots of us having these open border policies and people such as Bob Franco O'Rourke or Julian Castro that believes that we should decriminalize illegal crossing of our borders. They're talking about violating the sovereignty of the state of Texas and the United States of America. But I think that's a critical thing. Dallas and Houston are the top 2 cities for human and sex trafficking in the United States of America. So, I don't see why this should not be a bipartisan issue. And I think that that's something, Doug, that when you go back and you visit that college university professor, you should say to her, do you want to be part of this? Do you want to have one of your students kidnapped and be forced into, the sex trafficking trade in the #1 state for sex trafficking in the United States? We've got to start shaming people. We have to start putting them on the defense and putting them back on their heels.
I agree 100%. And that is our plan. We do have in our very near future trying to get them on record to, physically tell us how they feel about their students. And you're right about Dallas and Houston. When we were down there, we were talking with Sheriff Martinez. He laid it all out to us, showed us how they're doing the routes. And, if they can get to Houston, they're pretty set that they're going to be able to continue on throughout this country. But the other thing we found out is that no one comes across that border unless the drug cartel allows it. And they're into everything, even the avocados now. It's so the sex trafficking and the drugs and the gang members, and nobody wants to really talk about it anymore. And so we did. Now, of course, now that we're doing it, we have been noticing that it's starting to be talked about more on regular social media and with the news, and that's a good thing. I welcome that, as I'm sure you do too, because we got to do something. And Texas, hold it. We have no choice,
Yes.
Sir, thank you for not only what you're doing with the GOP. Thank you for your service to this country, your continued service to this country. And I hope in the near future, we'll be able to meet up and shake each other's hands. You're a great American patriot. You've always done good things for us, and we really do appreciate that.
Well, when I say Army Strong, though, that's what it's all about. And remember the motto of the United States Army that was founded on July 14, 1775, this will defend. And Doug, you are continuing on your oath of service to this country. As I said in that clip 10 years ago, that you will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic. You will bear true faith and allegiance to the same. And you do
Exactly.
that obligation freely without any purpose of evasion or mental reservation. So help you God, you continue to serve this great nation. We want to thank you and all our brothers and sisters out there, soldiers, sailors, air Marines, and Coast Guardsmen who are standing on freedom's ramparts. And even after they take off their uniform, they continue to stand like you're doing right now. So God bless you and thank you.
Amen. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it.
Yes, sir. You got it.
All right, folks, we'll be right back with Mahgdalen Rose and Dustin Gold, the interview. And I'm going to slide out here and take Sir Peanut up to the ER and get him checked out and find out what's happening with him. So prayers, please, for that. See y'all shortly. I count on you to be a part of Team Ducote to help us as we build this team to 2020 and beyond.
I, Douglas Ducote, an American patriot by the grace of God, do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America from enemies foreign and especially domestic.
Hello, American patriots. Listen, to bring you this content and the Douglas Ducote Show in the videos, there are only a few ways that this can be accomplished. Subscriptions, which in the future we will have, sponsors, and we've been blessed to have some wonderful conservative sponsors, donations, and we're grateful for all those that we get. Otherwise, you have to go to corporate sponsors. And corporate sponsors do what? Well, if you watch the big news networks, the big sponsors have you do what they want you to do, and they hold that money over you. That is something that we don't want to do here. We want to remain independent so that we can continue to bring you the truth about what's happening in America and not what some corporate sponsor wants us to tell you. It's all about being factual, getting the truth out there to you, the American people. Folks, your donations help us with all the things that we're already doing. For instance, when we go to the border, where we go from Brownsville, Texas, all the way to San Diego, California, that requires a lot of work, camera equipment and so forth, security, transportation. And between now and then, I'm going to be making some special smaller trips to the border to bring you information that is happening. And there's many, many other projects that we have as we move forward to 2020 and beyond, where we will do this as a team. I count on you to be a part of Team Ducote so that we can be independent and reach out to all Americans to show them the truth of what is happening. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts for all the donations that you're able to give.
Talk about the effort by certain young people in the conservative world to hijack the conservative movement and liberalize it. And if you're on Twitter, you've probably seen over the last 48 hours or so a discussion happening in the youth area of the conservative world about whether or not everyone has to be pro-life who's conservative and all of this. But my issue is these certain young people who often label themselves free thinkers, which I find kind of insulting because I'm a free thinker as well. It's just like, okay. These people who label themselves these free thinkers and independent thinkers get away with saying disgusting things about conservatives and disgusting things about Republicans going back years, and then they get these huge platforms in the conservative world and they try to use those platforms to change the conservative movement. These people are peddling this lie that in order to do this we have to backpedal on certain issues, specifically on abortion, that it's not the 1950s anymore and that, you know, abortion is something that we should be dealing with in a much different view. I didn't realize that because it's 2019 it's okay to kill children in the womb. I must have missed that memo. These people, they use their platforms to try to liberalize the conservative movement. And they do so solely because they want to be more prominent. They're not doing this because they genuinely want to help the conservative world. They're doing it because, first of all, they want a fail-safe if Trump doesn't win. They want a way to back into liberal stuff. They want a way back in. And their way to do that is to say, oh, well, I was still trying to impact the conservative world. I was trying to do all of that. I'm not that diehard of a fan of the conservative world. That's what they're doing. So for this certain person who actually leads quite a few young conservatives, who's peddling this crap about how you don't have to be pro-life to be a conservative, you don't have to be pro-life to vote conservative, you can be whatever and vote for whatever you want. But you do have to be pro-life to run as a conservative, and that's what this links to. I'm not making this just to rant. It's about the fact that these certain young people who honestly became conservative at a very convenient time, they are trying to change the credentials and the criteria for running as a conservative for elected positions. That's their plan. I've spoken to them. I get it. That's their plan to try to fix the conservative world, not actually addressing any of the issues with messaging or the fact that we don't have a platform for young people. But they want to chip away at all those things. And their reasoning is that if they can do that, then somehow they're going to be able to bring in all these new people to the Republican Party.
All right, everyone. I'm Dustin Gold, Douglas's producer. I think you heard right before the break and at the beginning of the show, Douglas had to take off. His service dog, Sir Peanut, has been having seizures, and he needs to get him to the emergency room. So I will be filling in for this interview. I just want to say the topic of tonight's show, even though Doug talked about immigration and border and the investigation that we've been doing, is the future of the GOP, which is why we just had on Lt Col Allen West, who's running for the chairman of the Republican Party in Texas, a state that we need to hold. And my personal belief when we ask the question, will Texas go blue? And as Doug pointed out earlier, I don't see blue as the party, the Democrat Party of JFK any longer. I see blue as third world. If you look at the Democrat-controlled cities across America, we have violence, we have crime, we have murders, we have people defecating in the streets. This is third world behavior that the Democrat Party and the progressives and liberals in this country today are spreading around this great country of ours. And a lot of this actually begins at the border, with the open borders, where we showed you the routes where they come in between Boca Chica, Texas, and McAllen, Texas, and filter up through 281 into Brooks County, about 75 miles from the border, and then they go up to Houston, and they're trafficked all over the country. And then we start to see all of these Democrat-controlled cities literally going to hell. Mahgdalen, one of the things I wanted to ask you tonight, because I know you had mentioned with Doug, to Doug in an interview not long ago, and you guys have talked several times, is that immigration and border security doesn't seem to be a major issue for young conservatives that you speak with. Last week, Doug and I had the honor of sitting down and sharing dinner with Dan Golvach. He's an angel father whose son, Spencer Golvach, at 22 years old, a young entrepreneur, had just bought a music store. It was the night before he was doing his launch party for the store. And an illegal alien deported 5 times walked up to his car and shot him in the side of the head and killed him. I have pictures of Spencer in his casket. It's the most sad story I ever saw. Doug looked Dan in the eyes and told him that we were going to uncover the problems, bring the truth to the people, and drive our solution-based ideas to the White House. My question for you is, how do we get young conservatives, young Republicans, interested in that issue and to understand that it is something that needs to be confronted, because the fact of the matter is we are losing this country to strategic demographic warfare. And I'm not talking on the level of the ethno-staters and all of that, but there are certain cultures that cannot coexist. We are becoming less of a melting pot, and we are now promoting diversity, multiculturalism, which cannot work. Just like I do not believe Sharia law can coexist with constitutional law, there are certain cultures that can't coexist, and that's what we're seeing happening in this country today. How do we get young conservatives interested in this issue?
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's not that they're not interested. They're just talk about it. That's the mistaken assumption here. It's not that they don't know what's going on. You have to live under a rock in conservative politics and not know what's going on. They're not going to talk about it because they don't view it as a winning issue with young people. So until you gain control of the donor base that funds people in the young conservative world who have organizations, that will never change. The young writers for Town Hall and The Hill, they could talk about immigration. Their bosses probably wouldn't even stop them from doing it. But within the youth area of the conservative world, it's seen as a no-no topic. Instead, we're supposed to talk about how wonderful Trump is, and he is a great president, but that's not enough. We're supposed to talk about how awful Democrats are. We're not allowed to broach the discussion about immigration because a lot of young conservative leaders are told not to, because a lot of the backers for these groups are not pro-America. They're not America first in Trump's worldview. They're more neocons. So it's not that they're not interested in it. A lot of them are. It's that they're not allowed to talk about it.
That's interesting that you bring that up. One of the great conservative minds of our time, someone I've listened to since probably 2006 when I first got interested in politics, is Dr. Michael Savage, who's always framed it as borders, language, culture. And a country, a nation, is defined by its borders, language, and culture. And a nation with no border is no nation at all. So how do you think that we, Doug is older than me, then there's me, then there's you. We're all spread out about 20 years apart. How do we break through with these younger kids? How do we let them know that it's okay to talk about this? One of the projects we're working on is the Angel families, a lot of them that you saw campaigned with Trump up on the stage. We're putting together a documentary now with the actual horrible, visual stories about what has happened to some of their children, because I don't think it's told enough. And we may need to shock people into realizing, as I said, certain cultures cannot mix. A lot of these people coming up from south of the border are desensitized to a lot of things. They, since they're young, they go out to markets, they see heads on pikes. I mean, we're interviewing a lot of people, and I think this is what our kids and grandkids have to see in order to understand that this is probably, I frame it as the most important issue since Thomas Jefferson drafted the Declaration of Independence. I think if we don't secure our border and we don't clean up this problem, our country is gone, because they're importing third world, 15th century Barbary into this country, and then we're seeing it in democratic cities all across America, and that's spreading into the suburbs, and that's spreading into the rural areas. And on top of it, we already know that the progressives, the Marxists, already have control of almost all of our institutions, from the universities to churches to our Department of Justice, our FBI. We've been seeing that all unveiled over the last few years. So how do you think we break through? How does it have to be framed?
You have to shame young conservative leaders. It's the only way forward. And the way that you do that is you have a coordinated effort by many people who have followings like Doug, or like what I work for, Caravan to Midnight. You shame them by putting angel families on all the time, by talking about these lives were lost. You have to make it a divide. There's people on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook going to start to say, if you're not talking about controlling the border, you're not really for President Trump. You have to create that kind of system, because until these people, and the young conservative world, people have to understand, is not some place that should be universally applauded. There's a lot of corruption. Until you're able to shame them through the use of alternative conservative media, through putting these angel families up, who they cannot disagree with, they have to address, they have to be kind to them. Until you do that and make it very clear that unless you're talking about the border, you're not really for President Trump, you're not going to have anything change.
Okay, and now that brings me to the next question. I want to get into this. In my opinion, as someone, since I was involved with politics, was always a registered Republican, considered myself a Republican, the Republican Party has changed a lot over the years. Just like we talk about the Democrat Party has changed into almost the party of third world, even though the Democratic Party does have a history of the Ku Klux Klan and slavery and other things that they like to pass on to us Republicans. But I've seen the Republican Party and sort of the definition of conservatism or constitutionalism shift a lot in the last 3 years. That's why I decided to play that piece, which was the opening to introduce you, because I have seen, as you have, and others of us are kind of in the strategy game, and we follow a lot of what's going on. In the last few years, I think the definition of conservatism has changed. I feel that the younger conservatives, at least the vocal ones that they amplify and they put on TV through groups like Turning Point USA and others, is that all of a sudden now conservatism has dropped social conservatism, and conservatism has dropped fiscal conservatism, we're running larger deficits under President Trump right now than ever before. So if we're not fiscally conservative and we're not socially conservative, how are we conservative?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. The thing that is happening in the young conservative world is that a lot of young conservative people, now I was a young conservative from 2008, but I defended Trump in my classrooms. I was a young conservative during that election, and that was a difficult thing to do, especially in a liberal state. A lot of these young conservatives who are in this now are Trump people. They're not conservatives. There's a difference, which is why they have no objection or even concern about the lack of fiscal conservatism, why they never address the deficit, why they never address any of that. What they're doing is they're trying to convince the leaders of the RNC, who some of them are naively falling for this, that if we don't move the party to a place where more young people will follow it and get involved in it by removing things like being pro-life to a certain degree, unless we do that, the party will not survive. They're lying to the people at the RNC, and the way that they're proving their case is by amassing these massive Twitter followings and massive Instagram followings. One of the main tenets of the conservative movement in the Republican Party should be being pro-life, but that is controversial now to say in conservative youth circles. The people who are in the young conservative world who are not actually pro-life would shock and appall many conservatives throughout this country, but they never talk about it and they're never questioned on it, because now if you're pro-Trump, everything else is okay. You can be pro-abortion, you can think 9-month abortion is fine as long as you're pro-Trump. The only way to fix that, again, is to change who's in charge of these young people, which is the people who are in charge of donations. And also, President Trump's administration and cabinet, I don't think is doing enough oversight on this. There's a lot of grifters, a lot of people who are lying about their stories, especially with experiencing bullying in the conservative, to be bullying and then coming into the conservative world. And they're doing this to amass greed. The campaign and the administration has got to step up the vetting.
Look, I agree with you 100% on all of those points. I'm someone who always said that I was for the plan, not the man. One of the things that when Trump ran, I agreed with about 85 to 90% of what he ran on his immigration policy, about 90% of what he ran on. The concept of Make America Great Again, the concept of America First, those are things I was able to get behind on, even though I said, well, I don't know, he was a reality TV star, I know his whole background, he might not be an ideologue. That's part of the problem I think we see, is he's not very ideological, he's not necessarily grounded in morals and values and principles, which is why I always had a little bit of a problem with Steve Bannon's concept of populism, because populism kind of comes and goes. A true democracy, the majority could vote to kill the minority. That's why we're a republic and not a democracy. So the question I have for you is, so where do you think, and that is a major danger, because when I see people going out to rallies in droves, and I've been to 12 of them, and just kind of blindly cheering on, that becomes a cult of personality that's just as dangerous of what Barack Obama did. So when you have the idea of republicanism under Trump, and you have this idea, because of the NFL battle with the kneeling, that Americanism and patriotism is represented by Trump himself, they should be separate things. And so what do you think with young conservatives, and I know you talk to some that are more Christian conservative, some that more conservative, others you talk to that they're being influenced by Charlie Kirk's and others. What do young people see as conservative now, other than just, I support Trump and then I'll embrace all these leftist things so we can save our party, when in fact we should be promoting our ideas and selling our ideas, that they are better ideas and they're more in line with our founding. And the reason why we are today where we are is because we abandoned our founding. And so how do you think a young conservative that you talk to defines themselves?
Right. Well, there's two groups. There's traditional young conservatives. They tend to be religious. They are very clear that, no abortion whatsoever. They care about the deficit, but they have an understanding that maybe because we had to rebuild the military, they can understand why there was an increase there. They don't want useless wars. They want a consolidation of money within the country, so we're not sending it out to nation build when we don't need to. They're very worried about making sure we don't have a socialist healthcare system. That's a big deal for a lot of young conservatives who are on the more traditional side, because they know where that goes. It goes to government rationing of medication, and they are very invested in debunking that particular myth. But then there's the other young conservatives, and they label themselves free thinkers. And my issue, like I said in the video with this free thinking thing, is they're not free thinkers. They have the most script of anyone in the young conservative world, and they believe in abortion. They think anybody can be a conservative. They conflate the fact that Just because you're pro-choice and you vote conservative means that you are a conservative. And they believe in liberal social policies, which they have a right to do, but they should not be talking with other young conservatives and influencing them. They don't care about fiscal security. They agree with other young conservatives about stopping useless wars, but that's really where it ends. But overall, they have latched onto the idea of populism. What I've never understood about that is, how do you have populism with an electoral college? Because populism is supposed to be the direct will of the people, the populist idea. So how are you going to meld those two things? And that side of people genuinely believe populism is the future. I don't understand how populism can be the future if you're going to still have an indirect vote through the electoral college.
Yeah, well, that was one of my biggest beefs with Steve Bannon. He stood on stage and debated David Frum, and he said, you know, the truth of the matter is in the very near future, we will have populism. The question is, will it be Trump populism or will it be Bernie Sanders populism? And I'm sitting back going, no populism. We're a constitutional republic, and stop talking about that. And the danger of Steve Bannon, and I think a lot of people don't know, I don't talk about it a lot, he has his hands in everything. He's had his hands in everything throughout his whole career. If you really look him up and study him, he's involved with a lot of weird stuff. And now he's out there consolidating alternative conservative media under his own name. He's taken over the We Build the Wall project. He's out there taking over a lot of groups. He has his hands in Turning Point. Steve Bannon has his hands in almost everything that we consider to be our wherever we like to go. We all have our drug of choice, where we like to read our media and watch our shows. And Steve Bannon is out there trying to consolidate everyone, you know, underneath his grip. I don't know who's behind them. The guy obviously doesn't sleep, and he's got to have a huge team because he's consolidating everything. So let me ask you, where do you see in 5 years, wrapping this up, in 5 years, let's say 6 years. So let's say Donald Trump wins a second term. We get a year past that. Where is the Republican Party? Where is the GOP? Where is the Republican National Committee? Where is conservatism 5 years from now, based on the direction we're going in today?
I think if Trump wins re-election, young conservatives who are more traditional and Christian will claim victory. And they will say, because Trump won with our support, with the support of people who believe what we do, we should be allowed to rebuild the party. And I think what's going to happen is a lot of the more traditional Christian young conservatives are going to take the best pieces of these free thinkers, which is that not everyone has to wear a suit and tie to talk to a group of young people. They will take those things and they will shape them into a more accessible message of conservatism. But I do think certain things will change. I don't think that you're going to have the same outlook on not curbing companies like YouTube and Facebook and Instagram. I think that it's going to be a conservative world that has more common sense in its capitalism. And what I mean by that is this idea of just free reign of markets. People like Ben Shapiro push this. It's very unpopular on both sides. And I think that the young conservatives in my generation who are more traditional are going to really take advantage of that idea and use it to bring many more young liberals over. But I also think it could go another way, where the Republican Party falls apart because young traditional conservatives and more conservative ones don't get listened to, and the party is given over to the free thinkers, and I really don't like that term. And these people drive it into the ground because they don't understand the majority of the base of the Republican Party is controlled by people who are fiscal conservatives and social conservatives.
Yeah, and I think these free thinkers that you're talking about could be a synonym for libertarianism. And look, libertarianism in its base form is okay, but a lot of people don't understand. The libertarian movement was taken over and hijacked by the Koch brothers in 1981 after one of them ran as vice president on the libertarian ticket. And then the Kochs went and started their arm, similar to George Soros' Open Societies, that's a web everywhere. And we believed, as conservatives, for many years that the Koch brothers were on our side. They were putting money into all these different campaigns, all these different candidates. They owned a lot of politicians. And then it was because of Trump in the last few years, as the veil's been lifted, you see that the Koch brothers were actually working in cooperation with George Soros on a number of projects, like the recent criminal justice reform. I supported criminal justice reform under Trump's campaign, the one that he ran on, the one that Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump passed, which was backed by Koch and Soros for 10 years, that had early release for child molesters, drug traffickers, and violent criminals, was not a good criminal justice reform, and that's why I tell people you should be very, very concerned of the reports that Jared Kushner is taking over management of the border wall. So, Mahgdalen, let everyone know how they could find you. Tell them about your book and where they can get that. And everyone, I'm telling you, this is the future of America right here. I'm in my 30s. Mahgdalen is 20. She is the future of this country. My kids are the future of this country. And part of the way we're going to accomplish this is you have to be hands-on with your kids. You have to instill values and morals and principles in history. Even if you can't afford to homeschool them, you don't have the time, or you can't afford to send them to private school, you need to supplement the public education that they're getting, because the majority of it is complete indoctrination. And a lot of the things like Common Core math they teach are ridiculous and making our kids stupid. So how do people find you, and how do they get your book?
Sure. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Mahgdalen Rose. And then I have a show every Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Caravan to Midnight, where I interview very interesting guests. You can find my pro-life children's book, which can be read to all kids, no matter the age, at Amazon or at caravantomidnight.com. And you can also find me on Periscope at Mahgdalen Rose.
And I am one of those very interesting people she will be interviewing tomorrow for her next show. So thank you very much. God bless you. Keep up the hard work. And I know you've got a big project you're working on with education. That's a long-term project, and we'll bring you on to talk about that one night in full, because a lot of people, we've been mentioning it, and we're excited about solutions-based activists, not just complaining about the problem, but offering real solutions. And people have to understand this country has been attacked for 50 to 100 years, and it's going to take us a long time to get out of this hole if we want to save this republic. So God bless you, Mahgdalen. Thank you very much, and have a great night. All right, folks, so we are going to wrap up here. I don't want to go on a long rant tonight, even though, I may. Look, we had Lt Col Allen West on. It was fantastic. We got to talk to him about the border situation, about the problems going on in Texas that we found in the border investigation. I just want to let you guys know why we're doing this and the purpose really quickly. In the border series that we put out so far, Border War, there's part 1, 2, and 3. And the full interviews of the different characters you met in there, which was Sheriff Benny Martinez from Brooks County, Texas. You met Chris Cabrera, the Vice President of the Border Patrol Council. That's the union. They represent 20,000 Border Patrol. You met Rusty, the landowner, who Doug was with today. And you got to meet Dr. Vickers, who owns a ranch up in Brooks County, which is 75 miles from the border, where he finds dead bodies on his property all day long. He brings in his militia friends. They patrol that area. So we're going to have those full interviews at DouglasDucote.com for free. They're just long, so we don't want to drop them all on YouTube. And Dr. Vickers actually does a presentation where it's got some photos of dead bodies that we can't put on YouTube or will be banned. But we'll put a warning before the video so you're not watching that with your kids if it's something you don't want to show them. What else we have in the works is we're bringing a number of angel families together. We're developing a short documentary that's going to tell the real horrible stories about what happened to their children. People need to see this. We're going to be publishing some videos on DouglasDucote.com of people having their arms cut off, their heads cut off. You need to spread this to your friends and your family and your coworkers and your associates, and let them know what's actually happening here in the United States of America and 100 yards over our border. It's what needs to happen. But in the pieces, if you haven't watched them yet, and please share them with everyone. We know people have been having watch parties with them. We're going to upload them on Facebook so you can do watch parties there. But we showed you University of Texas, Brownsville being wide open. We showed you Muslims, Chinese, Iranians, and many other than Mexicans, OTMs, are invading our country. We showed you the smuggling route from Boca Chica to Starr County and up through Brooks County to Houston and then around the country. We showed you the bodies piling up in Brooks County. We showed you local police are outmanned and Border Patrol is lacking equipment, which is a disgrace because the Department of Homeland Security gets $65 billion a year. There's no excuse why every Border Patrol agent shouldn't have night vision and bulletproof vests down on that border. And we met a lot of them and they didn't, and it's a disgrace. Our government should be ashamed of itself. Ashamed of itself. Think about this, folks. 9/11 happens within 1 year. Within 1 year, we launched Department of Homeland Security. We launched the Spy Grid, the Patriot Act, the TSA, scanners in every airport across the country. Where I want to go fly to visit my grandma, I got to go through an X-ray machine and have my genitals zapped. They figured out how to do that, but they can't figure out how to close their border. I think you need to start to ask yourself a simple question. Do these people in government actually like us and care about us and love us? And the answer is clearly no. The answer is that they hate us and they want us dead. Think about the things these people are promising you. Medicare for all. Well, think about this, as Doug has brought up. The VA is the largest government-run healthcare system. They look out for 2 million veterans. You have dozens committing suicide every day. The VA is a joke. Doug and all of his friends have problems. It's not fixed under President Trump. They want to give you the VA. So they can't manage healthcare for 2 million people, but they want to manage it for 330 million? That's ridiculous. They want to give you unlimited taxpayer-funded abortions. So they want to kill your children. They've already admitted that. They want to give you taxpayer-funded transgender chemical castration surgeries so that you can't have children. That's what they want to give you. But yet the one thing they don't do when they claim that they love you and want to give you all these great things is they don't give you a secure border. They don't close down the border. They don't send terror block. They don't send National Guard and then fight to continue to put up the concrete wall. We need immediate action. And the reason why we're doing this series is not just to continue to talk about the problem, because a lot of people have made documentaries about the cartel and the border over the years, but we're bringing you real stories from these people on the ground, the people that it affects every single day. And it affects all of us around this country. But the people on the border are on the front lines. So we're bringing you those stories. We're bringing you the truth that the media will never bring you because they're controlled by Washington. And Washington will never tell you because they are the cartel. Any single Democrat who refuses to seal the border, every single Democrat who refuses to deport illegal aliens, every single Democrat that stands up for sanctuary cities, every single Democrat who supports the hiring of illegal aliens, the destruction of our healthcare system, our education system, our law enforcement system because they're overwhelmed by illegal immigration, they are a member of the cartel. And any Republican who refuses to get on board with this solution, who refuses to push forward with bill after bill after bill to seal our border and deport these illegal aliens, is a member of the cartel. And I don't have a problem calling out any one of them because I am not loyal to these people in Washington. You know, I voted for President Trump. I believed in President Trump. We want to help take our solution. So we're highlighting the problem, the real problems. We're going to boil that down into a short presentation along with our solution, which includes terror block, smart vibration technology, and armed National Guard, to the White House with angel families, veterans, law enforcement, American patriots like yourself. We want to go with a large group when this is ready and go to the White House, demand to sit down with the people in charge of the immigration policy, which right now we hear is Jared Kushner, Donald Trump's son-in-law that I just talked about, Stephen Miller, who's Donald Trump's senior advisor, Ken Cuccinelli, who's the immigration czar. Ken Cuccinelli the other night was in a bar in Maryland at a class reunion for his college. And Martin O'Malley, that drunken piece of trash, former governor of Maryland, goes up to Ken Cuccinelli, pokes him in his chest, berates him, and Ken Cuccinelli cowards and runs out of the bar like a wimp. That guy is in charge of our immigration policy. How is that wimp, that coward, gonna take on the cartel if he wasn't willing to smash Martin O'Malley over the head with a beer bottle? That guy is a coward, and he needs to leave. He should have been fired when that story came out. So we're going to bring this solution to the White House. We're going to demand a meeting. We want the angel families there, the sheriffs we're putting together there, the Border Patrol we're putting together there, the veterans who risked their lives to stand up and protect this Constitution there, and any of you there. And we want to do this presentation and say to the President of the United States, sir, we voted for you. We supported you. I owe you nothing. In fact, I sent you money for your campaign, so you owe me. Are you serious about fixing this problem? Here is the solution, yes or no. And it needs to be done, folks, before 2020. Because we all believe that either one, he could lose, two, he could be impeached, or three, the CIA will kill him. Okay? That's the reality. So there's no way we can gamble the security of our country with those three things hanging. I'm not waiting till after 2020. I'm sick of politicians that keep kicking the head down the road. Let's say that instead of the can now, because all the Mexicans cut the heads off. We can't wait until after 2020. It needs to be done now. For $1 billion, TerraBlock will bring over the system. The Army Corps of Engineers installs it under TerraBlock's project managers. Meanwhile, armed National Guard from around the country are coming down to the border under presidential command. And you know what's great about that is there's so much corruption, entrenched corruption at the border with law enforcement and elected officials. Well, with National Guard, they're coming from all over the country. So their eyes on the ground for the president. The corruption starts to dry up because they're always looking over their shoulder. And if you bring down 25,000 National Guard, that's 8,000 guys against across a 2,000-mile border, 3 shifts, and you rotate them every 3 months, they will never be able to become corrupted. It's the same concept as why we want term limits in Congress, because it's harder to become corrupt if you're there for a shorter amount of time. Folks, I hope you enjoyed the show with Lt Col Allen West. We need you to get behind us. We're going to launch a campaign in the next couple of days. We're asking people to commit to $5 a month until we get the meeting at the White House and get an answer for you, yes or no. If the president says yes, then we won the short-term battle and we continue to help him fight for the full-blown concrete wall. If the president says no, then we know something is up and we move to Plan B, whatever that may be. We're not releasing that yet. But we need you to get behind us. $5 a month. That is like a Starbucks coffee. It's a pack of cigarettes. It's nothing. Until we get the meeting in the White House, of which we're trying to get the documentary finished and the meeting at the White House done within the next 3 months, so there's enough time to get this solution into place. In the meantime, our allies are pushing Governor Abbott in Texas. They are sending things to the White House. There is a TerraBlock plan on the president's desk. So we are moving at all times. We are always taking action. If you want to save your country, the worst thing a patriot can do is stop acting. You need to act all the time. You cannot stop. Freedom is not free, and liberty is a fight that we will have every day until the end of mankind. That's what is unique about our country, the fact that we are a constitutional republic. I love this country. I love all of you. I love Americans and I love humanity. I want my goddamn border secured, and I will fight every day until that's done. We will do it for you. Doug, me, Chrissy, Marilyn, Maria, Dan, our entire team. And you need to start supporting people like Maria Espinoza, who organized the Remembrance Project. That's the biggest Angel Families group. She's running for Congress in Texas. You need to support people like that. We will be your freedom fighters, but we need you to have our 6. God bless you all, and God bless this country.
Support our movement. Join our cause. Stop by the Douglas Ducote Patriot Shop to get your official Team Ducote apparel and gear. I, Douglas Ducote, an American patriot by the grace of God, do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America from enemies foreign and